Hello, this is Danny Ceballos with Unleash Consulting and your best boss, Take Five. And as a reminder, I work with managers and leaders who lead with their hearts and their heads, and they are mission driven and really passionate about social change and making a contribution to the world. If this is you or anyone that you know in your organization and they could use some help, or you could use some help with how to best lead and manage your organization, your team, and your people, please reach out to me. We'd love to work with you. And in the meantime, we're going to finish up our series this month of best practices and recommended approaches and strategies for leading and managing a digital or hybrid environment. And we're going to finish up this series with our two last best practices. Again, that the research is super clear that this is what's working in this new environment that we find ourselves in. And these two are actually, they're two of my favorite because they really speak to working with your people's internal compass around motivation. What we know from the science, from the research, especially Daniel Pink's research around what it takes to really motivate somebody and keep them motivated. So the first of this best practices is proactive well-being intention. And that's just a $10 set of words saying we want to be intentional about how we are protecting our folks' mental health as best we can, creating psychological safety, rewarding them, doing everything that we know is needed in order for them to feel fully motivated. So specifically, the core practice for this is building in well-being checkpoints into your regular workflow. So again, if you've been watching the other two Take Fives that we did this month, you know, the importance of in this digital world is to be as clear with your folks, as directive as your folks as you can be. Can't over communicate this. You can't it's not micromanagement, folks. So I want to make that super clear. We are giving people what they need right now in order to feel connected with their work, in order to feel connected to you. So don't let people catch you up in micromanagement. This is the idea of creating structure and foundation so that you can flourish and everybody can be productive. And again, one of those is about being really clear about how we are going to do regular check-ins on your well-being. And we know when we do this, when we follow these best practices that I'm going to share with you, we see things like a 32% reduction in reported burnout. We see a 28% increase in deep work time and a 45% improvement in team energy levels. The examples for this, the real world examples that we have out there are LinkedIn has something called a no meeting day. Specifically, they have company-wide meeting-free Fridays. Maybe that's something that you have the agency to do within your organization. HubSpot has something called realistic remote. And this is that they require break times between virtual meetings. So what can you do to free up your schedule and your people's schedule so that there's, you know, with a 1 hour meeting, 50 minutes of meeting, 10 minutes of break to get, well, first of all, because there's usually overflow, but more importantly, because then there's a time for folks to step away, hopefully from the screen, and really take care of themselves before going into their next meeting. HubSpot has, well, that was the HubSpot, and Shopify has something called deliberate disconnect. And that is they schedule offline work for deep hours. So that's really powerful. So what can you do to create a predictable time slot for your people and for yourself that you can actually engage in deep, thoughtful work? Not being bombarded by all of those things that are important and urgent and require your attention immediately. What can you do to allow folks to shut off all of their reminders, all of their emails for an hour, 2 hours? Presumably you have folks that are really working with their brains in the work that they do. It's not just a human resource machine moving things through your organization. Instead, we're asking people to be leaders, to be what they need to be thoughtful. So what can we do to create the space and to scaffold around that space and that time so that folks have that predictable time when they can engage in deep work? Now, as a side note, kind of a pro tip, when you do this, and I hope you'll do this, it's important to keep people accountable to the commitment that they make that they will engage in that deep work. And so what can you do to create a structure, perhaps, where your people report in on what they will be working on in those 2 hours, and then afterward to give you a short report on the progress that they've made and make sure that we're aligned in what needs to happen for this particular work. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please reach out to me and let's talk a little bit more about this. But I want you to start engaging in that notion of proactive well-being intentionality. And lastly, for our series, result-oriented recognition. So the core practice for this is a focus on outcomes and impact rather than activity and presence. Really simply put, means that we're no longer in the space and time where we need to require people to be at a certain place at their desk in order to punch the time card and fulfill the obligations that they have with you and with your employer. We still have a lot of that in place, but more and more what we're asking folks to do, what I'm asking you to do, what we're being asked to do, and it really reflects kind of a Gen Z notion and a post-pandemic notion of what work is and isn't for us. I actually think it's very exciting how we're starting to figure that out. But instead of saying the success for your work is defined by how many hours that you are spent doing the work, instead it is a results-oriented focus. There's a wonderful concept in organizational development called equifinality. And equifinality says there are a number of different routes to get to the same destination. So what can you do to create space and time for your folks in order to find their own route to get to the result that you have agreed upon? Some examples of this include InVision's Impact Showcase, where they have weekly team presentations of completed work and learnings. Trello has something called Wins Board, where they have a public recognition space for team achievements. And then GoShip has Ship It Days, which are monthly celebrations of launch projects and features. So we want folks to be proud of the end results of the work that they did and how can they show that with each other. And we know this works because we see things like a 37% increase in team motivation, a 42% improvement in project completion rates, and a 29% higher employee satisfaction score. So I hope that was helpful. Please reach out to me if I can help you with managing and leading your remote and hybrid teams. I look forward to working with you, and I look forward to joining you again with next month's Take Fives. Thanks so much. This is Danny Ceballos with Unleash Consulting, wishing you to be the best boss possible. Bye now.